also need to be said in terms of the support that is actually happening. So we need one another here to hold hands to each other to success for this business to take place. Yeah, and then for myself, yeah, I'm impressed with this. I was not expecting this kind of setup that you have done. For you to come with this kind of initiative to give opportunity people like us to come to mission to just to give, the first hand, information coming from somebody who's on the ground to come to share with you. I think it's also need to be uploaded, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Mabungo. Then our time is come to an end with yourself. Thank you very much. We appreciate the time. We appreciate you traveling to be here. We wish you all the best, but we also congratulate you for a work that really, really does look brilliant. 5-minute leg break to also prepare. Okay, let's take a 2-minute break and then return. Thank you, Mr. Mabungo.
It's not even it's not coming through the Teams, then it means I'm going to speak, but it has to be muted, speak. So let's just see. Otherwise, we must just continue on Teams, and so that we can communicate with him quickly while we still have. Morning, Mr. Muringani. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Oh, beautiful. I'm doing so well. My name is Eileen. I'm from the Human Rights Commission this side. Thank you for your time. We have load shedding this side, so I just want to warn you that if we suddenly go off, we are not being rude. It's really beyond our control. We'll get into contact with you soon thereafter. I'm going to hand you over to Commissioner Thuli, the chairperson of this panel, and she will proceed with the formalities. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Mr. Moringani. Is that correct?
Moringani.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Yes, correct.
And welcome, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to join these proceedings. As indicated by Dr. Kata, we have a few challenges with electricity and energy, but they are not unique to us. As a South African, you will understand the challenge. Mr. Moringani, then without further... Thank you. We will then administer the oath. Do you have any objections to taking the oath this morning?
No, I have no objections.
Then can you kindly state your full name, surname, the institution you represent, if you represent any institution, and the position that you occupy, if you occupy any position.
Okay, my name is Tinotenda Moringani. I am representing the Equality Collective, an institution based in the Mbashe local municipality, and in my capacity as the researcher of the organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moringani. Having indicated no objections to taking the oath, do you swear that the evidence you shall give this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, will you kindly raise your right hand and state, "So help me God"?
So help me God.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moringani. As I indicated earlier, I am the chairperson of the panel and the inquiry, but I'm not joined by Dr. Kata alone. There is also Dr. Fobosi, who is on my left, and together the three of us will engage with your presentation. We will then offer you about 20 to 30 minutes to offer us your presentation, and thereafter we will engage. Hopefully the energy will last us that long. Over to you, Mr. Moringani.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for your time, and also good afternoon to the rest of the commissioners. My presentation is going to be based on our conditions here in the Klogamouth area. As I mentioned earlier, I come from the socioeconomic rights, and we do function in a community that is primarily affected by some of the major issues that are associated with access to roads. We also did not get enough time, to prepare for this presentation, but I will try my best to include as much information as I can on on the questions that we were provided to respond to, and try and give as much information as possible in the context of the area that we are based in. I've started my presentation with a number of questions, and I will just outline the question as I go through the presentation itself. The first one regards the legislative mandate of local municipalities. I think that it's also very important that we understand where they derive this legislative mandate. And this is a constitutional mandate that is found in Schedule 5B, which specifically provides for the functions of local municipalities, which includes roads, amongst other things. As it concerns roads, this concerns planning, construction, and maintenance of roads and bridges. So Mpashe local municipality would fall under that context, as a municipality that has the responsibility to ensure that these things are done. We then talk about the context in which we live in the Mpashe local municipality, and I'm just going to break down some statistics on the length of. As I was saying, Mpashe local municipality has 2,700. Sorry, is there a question, or I don't know what's going on? There seems to be interference from your end, or should I just continue?
Hi, Mr. Muringani, if you can hear me, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. As I was saying, Mpashe local municipality has a total length of road network that's about 2,711,000 kilometers. Of that road network, the national roads are about 40 kilometers. The provincial roads are about 776 kilometers. And the municipal access roads, which are the gravel roads within the rural parts of the municipality, make up the majority of those roads, about 1,909,000 kilometers. The rural roads asset management system indicates that there is a huge backlog in two classes of roads, which are predominantly in the Mpashe area, which is class 4 and class 5 roads. And then this makes up about 1,864 kilometers of a road network that is a backlog. So that is just the context of the road network within the Mpashe local municipality. And from our experience, the next point is regards the state of the roads. The state of the roads themselves depends really on which part of the local municipality that you are in. In the area that we are based in, you will find that the road network in some areas is okay-ish, but not necessarily perfect. But then there is then a gap that certainly appears out of nowhere, where the road then starts breaking up or something like that. So what we find is that the road network is a mixed bag of predominantly gravel roads, gravel roads, which impact the socioeconomic conditions of people that are living in the area. And I'll try my best to outline these impact on access to, first of all, basic services. So because the state of the roads are predominantly gravel, and gravel that is not necessarily properly laid out, this has a direct impact on access to basic services in the area. The Cloggermouth area is a significantly big area made up of almost close to 40 villages. We're talking of about 9,000 to 10,000 citizens in the area that we live in. The impact, I'll go per category and try and give examples so that I can give context to each. The first one regards healthcare. There are two major institutions that provide health services, which is one, the Situlele Provincial Hospital, which is about 19 kilometers from the furthest point in the Cloggermouth administrative district area. And then there's a Madwaleni Gateway Clinic as well, which is also about 25 or so kilometers away. You would ordinarily think that these are small, 25 kilometers and 19 kilometers is not necessarily a long distance. But because of the context of the roads that we are in, these are gravel roads where people need to travel quite long distances and wait for transportation, which is not necessarily moving on a regular basis. So you'll find that for you, even with a person for our institution to travel to the nearest hospital, the 19 kilometers that we need to travel would ordinarily take us maybe around an hour, 30 minutes, or 2 hours to get. So you can understand the context of someone who doesn't have a car or who has to wait for an ambulance to come into the area as an emergency situation. Another barrier to basic services regards schools. When you talk about schools, scholar transport is affected by these issues because learners end up not having scholar transport because service providers are not willing to come with their cars to provide these things. Or in some instances, you find that the scholar transport rates for private players become excessively expensive, so learners are then resort to just walking to schools. In instances where learners are walking to schools, in days when it's rainy, learners either just don't go to school, or the challenge that we have also identified is that when learners do go to some areas and try and cross, because they're walking about 10 or so kilometers to schools, you find that learners have to cross rivers, have to cross these areas where it's very damp. So either learners just don't go to school, or the ones that do go to school are at risk of being affected by the fact that they have to cross rivers. So you can imagine a child who now gets to school in a state that is not necessarily conducive for the person to learn, having walked these long distances as well. Another issue we can reference when we talk about basic services is access to water. There is a major water scheme that services the area that we are in. The major issues that we have identified or that we have been cognizant of as an organization that directly works with Amatrolo District Municipality in relation to access to water is that in the instance where there are breakdowns in the facilities, for example, the water treatment works needs a person to come down from the municipality to come and fix. One of the major complaints that we have received from these guys is that they either cannot access the areas in time or timelessly. They can be able to get there, but then because of the state of the roads, it takes them time to get there. So a job that would ordinarily have taken them maybe an hour or 2 hours to do, then takes them longer to get done because they have to travel on such a bad state of roads. This has also affected their equipment, the cars that they drive because of wear and tear. So what you find that is, in some instances, they just don't have the manpower and the tools to come in because their cars are damaged from the state of the roads. This then trickles down when you talk about access to water to the village, because if that problem is not addressed and fixed, we just don't have water access in the community. Another instance of a situation that has occurred is because the water system, because the municipality is unable to come and fix the water problems, the scheme is not feeding water into the community. There are instances where there's, for example, a funeral. This is actually something that occurred and we were informed of by a traditional leader, where there was a funeral that was in his area of jurisdiction. And normally what you then do is request the municipality to come with those water tanks, those trucks, those water trucks. And because the road leading up to the house where the funeral was so damaged, you will find that the truck could not actually access that area. So what then ends up happening is that the service provider doesn't actually arrive to that area and then just turns around and leaves because you can't access that area. And this is a common trend that we have seen happening in instances where service providers aren't able to access the specific areas where they are meant to provide services because of the state of the roads. Another basic service, we talk about social welfare. Our area is predominantly, it's composed of a demographic of predominantly poor people. So these individuals are then dependent on social grants. In order for you to access social grants, you need them to have the facilities to go and actually get the money loaded or to collect the money or to withdraw the money in whichever form and format that you decide to go and withdraw it at. The problems arise now where either the situation is that there's a one central point of collection for these monies or the places are just generally far. Again, because of the state of the roads, it's either when it's raining or just generally it's a mobility issue where people aren't able to go to these spaces because of the state of the roads. People either have to walk or because taxis don't want to come in and damage their cars, or people have to pay excessive amounts of money for them to go to these central collection points for them to actually get access to the grant. So that grant, which would have been the 350 or the 500, whatever amount will be, you'll find that it ends up getting used for the purposes of you getting to go to access the actual grant. So your 350 doesn't necessarily end up being that. It ends up being deteriorated or diminished by the fact that you have to go through these very intensive loopholes, which originate because of the state of the roads and the general state of the space that we're in. We can talk about the cost of living question, where because the state of the roads means a person who's running a spaza shop, for example, has to pay more or has to utilize more in terms of maintaining their cars or paying more diesel for them to stock up their spaces. The cost of living becomes so high because the spaza shop is the closest place where you can go and buy something. And because the service provider himself or the owner of the tuck shop has to pay so much a higher cost in terms of operations of those shops. The cost of basic goods in those spaces is also expensive. The cost of going to the nearest town is also very expensive because the taxi operators accommodate that cost into their operation, into the daily operation. Economic development has also been affected by the state of the. There is a large that is at the edge of the Ngileni area that has also faced some difficulties, and they've also been complaints regarding the state of the road. In some instances, the lodges had to give up collecting guests from Tata, which is the closest airport and closest transport hub, because they just aren't able to get out of the village or they aren't able to get into the village. So this is a trickle effect going down all the way to the tourism sector and also to market access for people who are fishermen, people who have livestock, and people who want to get their produce to go outside or for people to just generally buy their produce. So these are the examples of basic services that are impacted by the state of the road. My next point regards the work that we do as an organization. We are also impacted by some of the things that happen. I mean, the state of the roads generally. For us, it's a question of operations and costs in terms of us going to spaces where we need to provide the services to the community members that we seek to capacitate. It becomes difficult for us to access some specific areas because of the state of the roads, which means we cannot meet some of our objectives, some of our outputs, because we just could not visit these areas on those specific.
1, 2. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? If you can hear us, sir, please continue with your presentation. We apologize once again for the technical interruptions.
Please proceed, Mr. Moringani.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure where I was. You can just guide me where you last heard from your side so that I can continue from there.
You were speaking to the Sahrc grants and the services.
Okay. So as I was saying, one of the basic services that are affected are the social welfare packages because the road is it's relatively bad in some areas where it becomes difficult for people to access the central spaces where people can collect their social grants. It becomes a problem because individuals then have a situation where the grant itself is getting utilized for merely going to go and collect a grant. It's not being utilized for what it's meant to be utilized for, which is for them to purchase the basic goods that they need for them to be able to survive. This becomes a problem because as a social welfare package, it's meant for that purpose. And the roads have a direct impact on this social welfare program because of this issue of the roads. Mobility to go to these areas, increment of amounts by the taxi providers, because they also have to take into account the fact that the roads are so bad. They are traveling long distances on bad roads, and they add this cost into what the people in our communities end up paying. Another basic service or another issue that is directly affected by the roads is cost of living. Again, because the people who own the spaza shops or the shops that are in the area have to add this operational cost somewhere, which is the wear and tear on their vehicles, the wear and tear, and the cost of generally getting goods into the area. Because the roads are relatively bad in some areas, this cost is then pushed to the consumer, and the consumer has to bear the brunt of these problems. So you'll find that your local spaza shop will be charging maybe double what it would cost for a person to get maybe a pint of a liter of milk, for example. And another factor is the fact that because the roads are so bad, the cost for you to go to your nearest big major store, which is maybe about 30 kilometers away, is also pushed onto the customer by the taxi providers because they have to take into account this wear and tear. Economic development is also another issue that is directly affected. Your tourism sector, for example, there is a lodge called the Bulungula Lodge, which is at the edge of the Ngaleni area, just by the coast of the Kroga River. And you'll find that in some instances, these people are directly affected. The lodge is directly affected by the state of the roads. In instances where, for example, it is raining or the general state of the road deters people from coming in and driving in. Though they have put measures in place to try and address some of these things, in some instances it becomes so impossible for the guests to come in from the Mutate area or to come in from other areas because of the state of the roads. This then directly affects the income generation capacity of the lodge, which then affects a range of other issues. Market access, for example, for people who have been capacitated, for example, to be fishermen, cannot access markets in other areas because it's difficult for them. It's either difficult or very expensive for them for their goods and proceeds and produce to actually go upstream to markets in Tata, to markets in Elliotdale, to markets even in Coffee Bay. to markets in other areas, even in Butterworth and the likes. And then this has it's a direct impact on the individual's pocket. His hard-earned labor um, is not getting adequately compensated, or they just don't have access to the markets for them to have any form of economic development and sustenance for their labor. So these are just generally some of the basic services that I can highlight as that are directly affected by the state of the roads. And one of the next questions was the impact that it has, that the state of the roads has on our work as the Equality Collective. Our work primarily involves engaging communities on specific matters, our right to water work, our gender-based violence work, our human rights workshops, are affected in certain instances where we cannot reach the number of communities that we would have hoped to have reached, because in some areas it's just difficult for us to get there. And we have a 4x4 highlights, which then gets affected by wear and tear, which is an operational cost factor for us that we have to consider when we go to some of these spaces. In some instances, it just becomes very, very difficult to access certain areas where you would ordinarily want to go and access and provide some of these services, or we have to drop down on the number of services that we provide. A point in case was a gender-based violence workshop that we had invited other external partners who are specialists in the area to come and provide support to the community. One of the difficulties that we had was a very rainy week that week, and we actually got stuck on one of the roads, it was raining, and that area of the road is very muddy and clayish. And we got stuck to a point where we just ended up abandoning that situation altogether. So these are some of just examples that exist. Other organizations that are in the area outside of us as the Equality Collective include the Bulungala Incubator, for example. They have also been decrying the issue of wear and tear on their vehicles, which has a direct impact on their capacity to provide as much support as they would have loved to provide to the communities in the area. So those are the direct impacts on us as organizations that are trying to provide support to communities in rural South Africa, and specifically in this area in the Mbashe community. Relationship engagement with our local authorities. I mean, this was a question that was part of the package that we were asked to respond to. And I mean, what we have tried to do in terms of engaging our local authority, because we also understand and are cognizant of the physical issues that are there within the municipalities. The reality is that the municipalities just don't have enough money to support and provide support to operations and maintenance within the local municipalities. This is just the reality that is there. What we have tried to do is try to play a role, first of all, in terms of information, capacitating communities with the information on how local government functions, because I think this is something that is largely overlooked. So the integrated development planning process is something that we integrate in our work, and we try to capacitate communities about how this works. We advise them on how budgets work. We advise them on how municipalities actually plan for service delivery operations. We actually encourage communities to make submissions to the IDP so that they can voice out their positions and their preferences, which again is a legislative mandate for municipalities. But the question is, like, who's capacitating these communities to understand the nitty-gritties of why is it X road is being fixed and not X road? This is a very important connecting the dots between the operations of the municipality, the understanding of what the communities understand about the roles and responsibilities of the community, and then trying to meet each other halfway so that there is a sense of accountability, first of all, and a sense of understanding in terms of the capacity of the local municipality. We also encourage community participation in gatherings, in BIZOs, IDP forums, and general meetings that are called by council, so that communities can voice out their issues. But also, most importantly, so that we can hear from the municipality of the challenges they are facing, so that it's not just a situation of us decrying the service delivery obligations of the municipality, but also understanding what the problems are and trying to come up with solutions together with the municipality. so they're not leaving that to them. Another important role that we have tried to play is building relationship with councillors. People can, I mean, this is an understated, relationship character, because the moment you have these relationships with the different councillors within the municipality, you are able to then understand what is motivating for specific things to be done, which are internal conversations that we would otherwise not be privy to as an NGO or as a community, right? And we also get to lobby and motivate to say, no, I mean, like, these are the solutions that we think would be more conducive in terms of the development of the area that we're living in. And then we try and have those conversations outside of the politics of it all. I just have an honest conversation to say, have we tried these solutions? We believe that this will be a better solution. Capacitating, trying to assist as well with accessing funding from some of the government grants. Questioning whether the municipality itself is actually tapping into all the funding opportunities that are available on national treasury or at the provincial level, which become important conversations when we then ask for accountability on why the state of the roads are what they are. The next point I was going to speak to is the broader implications of the continued state of the roads that are as they are right now. We already identify and see the implications already on the ground, and I've highlighted some of the issues that are affected in terms of basic services. But I can break down some of the broader implications and the more long-term implications if interventions in terms of financing this operations and maintenance aspect of road maintenance is not significantly improved in the next 5 or so years. There's definite economic impact. So we again talk about no market access, and we in the context of the NDP and the development of character of which the government continues to speak about. This is not a reality for rural communities where we are living. Economic development is not a reality for them because the state of the roads deters so many things from being done. People end up, the cost becomes the deterrent, which then means people are just not exploring some of these options. There's also a lack of access to opportunities as well because of the state of something as simple as a road. Poor trade and commerce is also another implication that is significantly there. You will find that there is a young group of generation of people that are willing to go wake up every morning to go fishing, but they just don't have access to the markets for them to sell these goods and services. Industrialization and urbanization in the context of rural South Africa, in the context of the rural area that we are living in, there is no job creation opportunities that arrive to these areas because an investor is looking at, is the road going to be fine for me to access this specific area? What are the benefits of me going to open up a factory, for example, in Elliotdale, right? Those are the questions that an investor will be asking himself. Am I going to be able to get my produce out? And if these basic services such as roads are not fixed, or even water, for example, are not addressed and fixed, these opportunities will never arrive at the poorest of the poorest, which are the people that are living in these communities. There's also social impacts that we can talk about. Access to education and healthcare. Just yesterday, Equal Education, another NGO that deals specifically with access to education, released a report that 10 years after, regulations regarding school infrastructure were released, there's still problems of school infrastructure. There's still problems, and these problems of school infrastructure are also contributed to by the fact that you cannot access some of these areas, some of these school areas as a service provider. There's no prioritization when we talk about fixing access to educational spaces in some instances. And granted, there has been an effort to ensure that there is access to healthcare facilities, so the roads in those areas are fixed. But then the other access roads from the deeper areas within the community are not fixed. So it continues to become it's a problem that is going to continuously be there unless a holistic plan of fixing the roads from all areas is actually addressed. There's also poverty reduction and social inclusion. I was giving an example earlier of how people have to walk long distances or generally don't have access, to example, to taxis to take them to these specific spaces for them to access your social grants, for example. So this cycle of continued, the systematic exclusion of individuals from markets, systematic exclusion from social welfare programs means that impact in terms of poverty reduction is people are just going to continue being poor because of lack of access to these spaces. Enhanced mobility and connectivity. I mean, it becomes difficult, for example, a service provider that wants to provide connectivity services in these areas for them to come in and say, I want to maybe place a Wi-Fi services in these areas or something. This is just a practical example that then continues perpetuating people not accessing, connectivity, and then this has a downward spiral. Kids aren't able to access internet. Kids aren't able to access basic resources, and then the cycle again continues. There's a cycle of exclusion. There's a cycle of exclusion from basic spaces that are going to allow you to develop as a community and economically. Best practices and my concluding remarks. I would just like to point out a number of things in terms of how this community has also tried to meet the government, the municipality halfway. And I would just like to emphasize this becomes out of necessity, where communities now realizing that there is capacity constraint within the local municipality, but then what can we do as a community to try and assist and help, or to try and meet the government halfway? Because the reality is we are the ones who live with these bad roads, and if we don't do anything to try and improve the conditions that we're in, we're just going to continue in this cycle of bad spaces that we live in. So community interventions that we have tried. The organizations that are in this Klogamouth district area have tried to. I think 2 or 3 months ago, there was money that was actually pulled in together, about north of 40,000 rands. And we engaged with some of the contractors that were working on other roads in the area to say, okay, this is the money that we have. We know that our road is not on the plans for the municipality this year. Is there a possibility that we can try and use? We have this money. This is what we're trying to do. We are trying to get gravel in our area, and then we have our own people that are going to come in and try and compact the road as well. So it's a question of looking at who are the players on the ground who can be able to assist, putting the money together and trying to put those resources towards improving the conditions of the roads. So this is something that actually happened a few months ago, where money was put together. We engaged contractors, we engaged the municipality. We asked that the municipality give us the equipment to come in, and we provided the community provided the diesel, the community provided the manpower, and then the municipality, some of the contractors provided the equipment, so those big trucks and so forth. That's how we have somehow tried to meet the municipality halfway in order to ensure that the roads in our area also are addressed and fixed. We are also very much cognizant of the fact that, and we would like to put this point across to the Commission, understanding the capacity of the Commission as a as an institution that can only provide recommendations. But there is a disjoint. There's something wrong with how the budget allocations are being done, whether this is from a national treasury perspective, whether this is just an issue of a lack of money or whatever it is. But you will find that the amount of money that's allocated for operations and maintenance of road infrastructure does not necessarily correlate with the number of kilometers of road that the municipality needs to maintain. And we can say that, yes, an IDP cycle is looked at as a 5-year plan. But even if you look at that 5-year plan, the amount of money that is allocated for that period is still not enough to ensure, even if we're not talking about road construction, we're talking about maintaining the roads that have been constructed already. Because this is just a question of coming in with a grade and occasionally looking at the road and making sure it's still compacted and intact. We were told in some instances that the budget for a year's cycle is one access road per ward for a year. So you can imagine in a ward, for example, in the ward that I am in, the access roads in this ward can amount to maybe 5 roads. So you can imagine that if there's only going to be one road fixed, that means one road is only going to be fixed every year for the next 5 years, which is a problem. We're still going to have problems with roads in the area. Another issue that we also tried to emphasize was communication. There is, I mean, if there's no communication between the municipality and the individual and the communities, the communities are not going to be aware of the constraints that are within the municipality. And if the communities are not aware of these constraints, it becomes a problem in terms of people now start creating their own ideas of what is going on. They start creating their own perceptions of what is going on. They start creating their own stories, and you start hearing these, unsubstantiated issues being pushed, being communicated in communities. So we have, best practice has always encouraged that municipalities must come into communities and try and give as much information as possible so that there is a communication space where people can, one, voice out their opinions and also come up with solutions. Because, I mean, municipalities are not necessarily the godfathers of solutions. Everyone can come up with solutions. And the idea is that the communities must play a significant role in coming up with the solutions of the problems that directly affect them. Otherwise, as concluding remarks, I would just like to thank the Commission for this opportunity. This has been, roads has been a problem in rural Eastern Cape for a long time, and we are hopeful that the Commission's work and the recommendations that they push forward will actually have a significant impact on some of the issues that we have identified, and we would hope to get addressed. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Muringani, are you able to hear us?
Mr. Muringani, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I'm able to hear you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Muringani.
Mr. Muringani? Are you able to hear me?
The sound seems to have gone off again on your end.
So you can't hear me? Hi, Mr. Muringani, are you able to hear me?
Okay, let me quickly make one comment. to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I think in the interest of time, Ms. Murungani, we want to thank you for your time. If we've got any further questions, because we're having a bit of a sound issue, we will be sure to forward them with you, to you through SICO. But what you've provided to us today has been very, very valuable, and I really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I understand, the network issues are a problem, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to present.
2. 1, 2.
Have you admitted me? Yes.
1, 2. One, two. 2.
myself and a couple of friends in the community have to take spades and road here. That is from my personal. Other problems we have in the region due to the rain and the poor condition of the road. We had an incident where the roads were blocked off completely for, it was over 4 weeks, by a small town called Polani. And children couldn't go to school because the teachers, first of all, they couldn't get transport to school because the taxis couldn't travel, and couldn't get to school, couldn't get transport. Not certain if you guys are hearing any of this.
You are cutting a bit.
Right.
Please continue.
No problem, will do.
Mr.
the
Hanneman,
roads
can you
continue
hear
to-
me when I speak through this microphone? Are you able to hear me now?
Now I can hear you perfectly loud and clear.
Thank you, Modimo. Please continue.
May I continue? Right. So to recap, the worst state of the roads, especially in the rural villages, continue to be a massive stumbling block in order for government, or rather in order for citizens to access essential services such as medical care, getting the ambulances to them, restricting access to schools, to facilities where food can be purchased, restricting access to dams where water can be collected. It makes things very, very difficult and incredibly costly. The cost of access, because of the high maintenance cost of traveling some of these roads, is astronomical. From our little village, for the people in the community to get to town, being John's, it's 42 Rand one way. This is 84 Rand to travel to Port John back. These are people that live off 350 Rand a month social. So it's incredibly difficult. Lack of infrastructure in these rural villages is a situation. We haven't even had water here for more than 7 years. In addition, the ambulance being able to get to the community or access Mbeni swiftly is simply not possible. We've had also cases in the village where during bad weather, severe storms, most of the people in the village live in mud huts here, in completely inadequate and unsafe structures. And these are badly affected by the severe weather. We have had cases where people have died because their homes have collapsed. The ambulances have not come out here, could not get out quick enough. In order to provide disaster relief for families that are affected due to disaster here in Mbeni, logistically, it is an absolute nightmare to get relief out to the villages because special vehicles are required. Ms. Maya Kezo and her colleagues can attest to the state of the roads when they came out last week to visit us. One needs a competent 4x4 vehicle or at least high clearance 4x2 bucky to get around here. Right. I hope you guys got that.
Hi, Mr. Hanneman. Yes, we got that. We're also trying to follow while you speak, looking at the videos that you also sent to us. So I've provided this to Commissioner Thuli just now. Have you finished with your presentation, and can we hand over to the panel?
Thank you, Dr. Carter. As far as comments and issues regarding the roads, yes. And I believe what is this hearing is permitted purely about roads. If there is any a plethora of other topics encompassed in the lack of infrastructure and any services that I could spend hours talking on. But if it's with regards to roads, then yes, I would say I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanneman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll hand over to Dr. Fobosi to start us off with his questions, and thereafter Dr. Carter will come back.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Hanneman. Right, thank you for your presentation and for representing Kwebeni community. I think I know a bit of that community. I'm happy to hear you present some of the lived experiences there, the conditions, especially when it comes to road infrastructure, right? But what I would be more interested to know is just in terms of a background, just to share with the Commission, in terms of the background, and I'm sure this is not a new thing, just to know as in how long this situation has been happening, how long the problem has been happening. Is it over 20 years or 15 years? How long now? And also the second one, you mentioned that it's difficult even for the ambulance to get to your location, especially in terms of access to health care. So when such conditions happen, when such situations happen, what then do you resort to as a community? How do you then access healthcare? Because that is a violation as it stands. And also, in terms of access to education, how do the children go to school on a daily basis given the current conditions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Hanneman. Mr. Fani, can we maybe request that you just switch off your camera and your microphone in the meantime? Mr. Fani? Dr. Nkapai, can we ask that you just switch off your camera and your microphone in the meantime? We're just finishing up with the current participant. Thank you so much. Sorry, Mr. Hanneman. Please continue.
Thank you, Doctor. Speaking to the first question relating to the times of the condition of these roads, my family has been in this area since 1991, right, 94 obviously, and over the past couple decades, the plight, well, I can't really use the term plight. The roads have never really been properly worked on. Every now and then, the municipality will send a grader to grade a small section, and then there are more storms, and then it goes straight back to normal. And as the villages have grown, obviously there is not adequate town planning done, so there's no such thing as stormwater drains. There is, dare I say, any town planning done, in fact. So the roads network has grown extensively as the villages have grown. in Mqobeni and a multitude of hundreds of other villages out here in the region. And the condition of the roads deteriorated rapidly over the last 20 years, to a state now where it is incredibly difficult to move around effectively, and for the people to access essential services such as medical, schooling, it's very difficult, and it becomes very difficult. So time span, I would say in excess of 20 years, sir. The second question regarding the access to healthcare during, let's call it disaster situations or emergency situations. It's a very good question. We have these smaller communities have an incredibly strong connection, because they are so used to living in these dire circumstances that I can use the term make a plan. So if someone is in labor, the ambulance clearly cannot come out. So most of the time they don't bother calling the ambulances because they can wait up to 2 days. They will just rally help from whoever they know in the village that may have a bakkie. Maybe somebody owns the tavern, or maybe somebody owns he collects sand for building. You will just use the community networks and family reach out, try to get something to the hospital or to the clinic. Often run in the areas, especially out in Mqobeni, because we are so remote. So that speaks to how do we get access to healthcare, just by utilizing one's, if possible. And cases, it's not enough. And the results are, we've had a case last month, in fact, where a citizen was able to get to the hospital in time and died on arrival. These are things that happen so frequently that the communities almost become sensitized to it. They've also stopped fighting and trying to help, because nothing is so long. It's unfortunate. Right. With regards to the question, the access to education facilities, free schools, this sits in the same bucket. When the weather is severe, when it rains, we have heavy storms, roads, children cannot go to school, teachers cannot host the kids. Even if the kids walked a couple of kilometers to the school, the teachers wouldn't be able to get. So, these cases, this is open up during good weather, when it's possible to the roads. In addition, over and above the roads, schools are the structures, the buildings rather, most of these schools are completely shabby, also incredibly exposed when weather gets bad. That is an entire discussion on its own. The first stage would be the schools, and particularly the schools in Mqobeni. It is, but that doesn't. So I will establish that discussion. I hope that answers the questions. And please feel free to fire anything else my way. I would gladly share if I can.
Right, thank you, Mr. Harriman. I'm well captured.
Thank
No
you.
further questions. Over to you, Commissioner.
No, thank you, Dr. Fobosi.
Thank you.
Dr. Carter.
Thank you, Commissioner. Only one question from my side. You indicated that there was engagement with the Office of the Premier. Can you just give us an indication of what was the outcome of that? You said it didn't lead to anything. Was there ever meetings? Were there representatives in the community? And if so, when and whom?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Yes, I'm able to answer that question in a relative amount of detail. I tried extensively to reach out to our local municipality, but the mayor, the municipal manager, the head of infrastructure, the mayor, Mr. Singo, the municipal manager, Mr. Kitsani, the infrastructure manager, Mr. Obozi at the time, as well as the disaster manager, Mr. Tikao at the time. And unfortunately, I believe they were perhaps too swamped and I didn't get assistance. I then wrote an email to the president's office and the deputy president. I received response from the deputy president, and they advised me to engage with the office of the premier. I, for the lack of a better word, email bombed the office of the premier because this was an incredibly serious matter. I was stranded with my young daughter. At the time, we suspected she had chickenpox, and I couldn't get access to medical facilities. I eventually got contacted by two representatives from the Premier's office. It was Ms. Babawa Ndau and Ms. Kandisa Kwinana at the Eastern Cape's Premier's office. The only reason they reached out to me, allow me to correct that, I believe the only reason they reached out to me is because I had contacted SABC a few days prior and invited the journalists to come out and do a piece on our roads. In particular, the fact that we were stranded with a young 11-week-old child and we couldn't get access to food, water, medical facilities. I am not certain how the office of the Premier got wind that SABC was here, but it's a small village. You know, when an SABC truck arrives, people start talking. And be that as it may, the office of the Premier, two ladies arrived at a very big fancy bakkie. They brought with the construction manager, John's Mr. Have his number, his contact on, and I just can't remember him offhand. They arrived at my gate, and the office of the Premier, two ladies put pressure on, and lo and behold, a few hours later, there was a earth-moving vehicle moving some sand away, clearing some sand away from the part of the affected area. What the engineers had advised, I believe, was the sand had to be cleared away in order for the truck to come and put rocks to secure the road, so that when there is severe rains again, the rocks don't wash away. So a portion of the road, the sand was cleared, and it took them, I think, 2 or 3 hours. They're supposed to come back to Fox and the road so that this doesn't happen again. Unfortunately, they never returned. So what happened is, in the next weeks, a little bit of rain. Again, it's a very rain-heavy. Absolutely everything washed away again. This time worse. All moved and put into a pile, and the rains came and washed it all away. And that's where we currently sit. We sit with the road that is, it's more like driving on a sand dune. With regards to the time frame, this was all in March, and a full, for transparency, my full email trail with initially the President's office, then the office of the Premier and the municipality, and multiple other departments within government relating to this matter is all in my email communication. If you scroll right down to the bottom, it starts, I think, towards the end of March. So particular times and dates and stuff, I can happily share with you, but it is on the communication I have ordered previously.
Thank you, sir. That's all.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope that suffices.
Thanks, Mr. Hanneman. I'm looking at a Google Earth image of your village, and it's from you. Do you have a sense of
Sorry, please say again. I did not hear that. Do we have a?
how many families live in Ebeni? How many households?
I would speak under correction. I couldn't give you an accurate number there. I would need to refer to our ward councillor, Mr. Maninjwa. Alternatively, I can jump on Wikipedia and have a look there. But by standards of villages in general, out here is a relatively small village, being the last village along the roads towards the ocean.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Hanneman?
I'm saying I could not give you any number of how many households or how many families are in Tlhoteni. I speak under correction. I reached out to Mr. Manjua. He is a ward councillor. Perhaps he may have that information. But as comparisons go, Tlhoteni is a relatively small village. We last along the road network from the main road just before one gets to the ocean, very last. So in comparison with other villages around, we are pretty far away from any main and really then smallest village.
Can you hear me still? Mr. Hanneman, can you hear me still?
I am here.
Okay. And is this, is Tlhoteni a communal community, or is it under a municipality?
So Tlhoteni falls under the Port St. John municipality in Ward 5 in the municipality. What I'm keeping recently is our water and it falls under a municipality. That is the OR municipality. But geographically, we fall under the Trans municipality. I raised that, I just mentioned that there's an issue now. One of many villages that have been without water for years. Tlhoteni village without water for over 6 years.
When you say you've been without water for over 6 years, do you mean water in the taps or any kind of delivery of clean water in the village?
I mean any kind of delivery in water in the village. There's absolutely no water for these people here. We have one tiny little water well right down at the bottom of the village. It is about 60 centimeters in diameter. It's a very small hole. And our entire village have to walk down to this watering hole, fill up their 20-liter or 10-liter buckets, and then hike back up to the village On busy days, people can wait 8, 12, 15, 16, 24 hours just to get water.
No water tankers come to your community.
No, ma'am.
You confirm that for more than 6
Again,
Yes.
more in order to get a water tanker out here would be a logistical nightmare because of the roads. So it's very prohibitive.
So can you confirm that for plus minus 6 years, the only source of water in this village has been this 60-meter diameter water well?
And that is correct.
Thank you very much.
I will add to that.
Yes, please
I will
do.
just like to make one note on that.
Yes.
It is separate to this discussion that doesn't relate to road, but it has context with regards to my last statement, is when I initially started engaging with government with regard to the lack of the poor state of roads, the poverty and starvation that it riddles our village, water is obviously a massive issue. And the fact that we have had no water for more than 6 years was a major human rights violation. I started engaging with the water and sanitation. This was a couple of years ago. Ms. Akanya, she's the director. She has pressure on the OR Tambo municipality. There were budgetary issues, all sorts of things. I've been present. There was a director supposed to be working on storing the water. This magically all comes now because we started to pressure the government, and that is only because there is an individual making a noise. But these people have struggled so hard. The unsanitary conditions that they live in is atrocious. We have a kindergarten here with 60 children that have not access to clean running water. The visible signs of diarrhea, chicken. It's hot. There's no toilets in most of the homes. The nursery school has pit. Now, pit toilets are not legally allowed in school environments anymore because they present such a danger. Many children die in toilets. They are sanitary and massive. Things around not having access to water.
Thank you, Mr. Hanneman. And then lastly, are you able to tell us what the main sources of economic activity are in the village? Can you hear me?
Very good question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can hear you. Our village is the epitome of destitute. There is no economic activity here in the village, except for one small spaza shop, which is opposite the school, and a container that sells chips and snacks, oil, and a few knickknacks. There are the only employer in the entire area, let's say the ward, is a hospitality facility called Mgazi River Bungalows. Mgazi River Bungalows is a holiday accommodation, and they employ people from the surrounding villages, and that's it. The vast majority of people in Kobe and the surrounding communities, Polani, Maplotini, Dumasi, KwaZulu, Buffalo, are unemployed. In fact, I have engaged at length with Sahrc, Ms. Sutwana, she's the regional director, on this issue, trying to assist people to get access to their grants. Again, this is the big problem for the people, because in order for them to get their grants, they need to travel to Port St. John's to the post office. And due to the state of the roads, it's one, incredibly expensive for them to get there and back. It costs them 84 Rand. On most days, the taxis won't take it because of the roads. When they get to town, they wait for hours and with the post. Most of the time, load shedding of connectivity, and they can't get their cash anyway. And these are people that are unbanked as well, so they don't have bank. They have no way to access their group. It's a rat's nest of the situations for them to navigate. So no, there is no economic activity that is noted within Mobeni and surrounding villages. Hence, the destitute state of the community, absolutely poverty-stricken.
Thank you very much.
Which is an issue that I have raised with the human. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanneman. And then maybe lastly, are you able to comment on the psychosocial state of the residents of the village?
It's an incredibly good question. So this question is twofold. The community of Mobeni is at large beautiful, humble, kind, warm, generous, giving people. They do not sit around and complain about their circumstance or finger the government, albeit they have every right to do so. But they are not. They are hopeful, and they are waiting in anticipation to be helped. They have simply lost their fire, their desire to fight for something more, their desire to drive for something due to their circumstance. From a personal perspective, we have been doing extensive work in the village. My family, we know most of these families personally, do food parties and blankets, pretty much whatever we get within our resources. And engaging people personally, it is such a sore topic for them. And if you are able to have a look at some of the video content that we shared, human rights, some of the content, you will see how these people. In fact, we had a video which was on SAB morning, yesterday morning, showing just two families, how they live in this village. The level of emotion comes up when they speak about the living conditions. Yeah, it's incredible. They are. It's a really sore topic, but they don't go around complaining of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanneman. That is the last of my questions. Apologies once again for the connectivity issues, but I'm glad that we have been able to engage with you this afternoon. And thank you also for the work you are doing for and with your community. It is quite a very difficult situation that you are having to live under, and we pray for your well-being. We therefore thank you for your time, and we want to also indicate to you that this is not the end of our engagements with you. If there are any other further questions or any other information that we may need in lieu of your submission this afternoon, the provincial manager and her team will be in contact with you. But for now, we want to thank you for your time and we wish you a good afternoon. Thank you so much.
Enkosi kakhulu, Nkosazana. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much. Then we will go straight to our next participant, who is Dr. Ngapai, who is joining us virtually. Dr. Ngapai represents the Trust for Community Outreach and Education Group. Good afternoon, Dr. Ngapai.
Afternoon.
How are you, Dr. Ngapai?
There's an echo. I don't know.
There's an echo.
Yeah.
Let us try to resolve that. We don't get an echo when we hear you speak. Mr. Hanneman, while you are online, was there an echo when we were speaking with you as well? You are muted, sir.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Is my involvement complete? May I?
Yes, I'm just asking, was there an echo when we were engaging with you?
Initially, there was an echo, yes. Then it's see that it's now. I can hear myself in the microphone.
Yes, yes. Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Hanneman. Yes, you may be excused. You may leave if you wish. We will try to sort out the...
And thank you once again
Thank you.
in the platform. I'm greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me try to switch mics. Dr. Ngapai?
Hello.
Is there still an echo, Dr. Ngapai?
Yes. When I respond, there is there's an echo.
But when my audio comes through to you, is there an echo?
No, there is none. It's just on when I talk.
Okay, okay. If you can just give us a minute or so that we can try to fix it. Do you have multiple devices that are connected on your side?
No.
It's just one device.
I'm the only one who's in this room and who's connected.
Okay. I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Carter, who may be able to assist.
Sigusunke, is that microphone not maybe on? Is everyone need to be muted from this side as well? I think, Doctor, if you can perhaps, when you speak, mute yourself, then you might not have the echo, because I can see that you are unmuted while we also speak. Is that? No, that's not going to work. No, we won't hear you. Sigusunke, I'm trying to think what is the best way, but perhaps, Commissioner, I mean, if he can hear us, we can just mute everything from our side then here. Okay. We're gonna talk from our side. Commissioner Ntuli is going to administer the oath and take you through the proceedings, and then we're going to mute from our side as soon as that is done, and then you will have an opportunity to respond and take the oath if that is okay with you. Can we proceed? We're going to try and push through these technical issues. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Will that be okay, Dr. Ngapai?
Yes, yeah.
Much, Dr. Ngapai. Then we welcome you to this inquiry, and apologies for our connectivity challenges. Much has been contributed by the energy crisis, which I'm sure you will agree is a burden that we all share as South Africans. So we do want to apologize nevertheless, but we still proceed with the hope and confidence that we will be able to engage effectively this afternoon with yourself. With that, I want to welcome you. I am Commissioner Ntuli, and I'm joined in the panel by two other panel members, the one being Dr. Fobosi from the Fort Hare University, and the other being Dr. Carter, who is our provincial manager of the Commission in the Eastern Cape province. Having have introduced the panel to yourself, do you have any objections or any other reservations to taking the oath this afternoon?
No, I don't have reservations.
Thank you, Dr. Ngapai. Then in that case, may I kindly ask you to state your full name and surname, the institution that you represent, as well as the position that you occupy, if any, for the record, please.
I'm Fanny Ngapai, the senior researcher for the Trust for Community Outreach and Education. Yeah. The echo is still there. Hello.
Dr. Ngapai, we have tried to sort out the problem on our side. Can you please continue so that we can see if there's still an echo? Please indicate if you are still hearing the echo.
Okay, let me try. Yeah, there's still echo. I can hear myself as I speak.
Hi, Doctor. Please continue so that we can just hear your voice and try and see where's the issue. So you can just speak. We know it might be a bit irritating. Apologies for that, but while you speak, we will be able to identify where the issue is here this side.
Okay. Well, as I indicated, as I represent the track for community outreach and education, and we welcome the opportunity to share our experiences and knowledge about challenges of road infrastructure in the Cape. TCOE is a national non-governmental organization with operations in 5 provinces of South Africa. The organization also works with a membership-based rural movement called Inyanda National Land Movement. Both its national character and the interaction with a national rural movement enables the organization to have a broad national view of the challenges the country is faced with. Equally, the organization has offices in Gqeberha, Berlin, and Kala. The offices service local movements and movements in other areas in the province, that is in the Eastern Cape. Now, I would try and get to give details of what we have noticed about the road infrastructure in the province.
Dr. Nkapai, are you still able to hear your echo, or has it improved?
No, it's still there. In fact, it disturbs me.
I understand. May I make a recommendation on your computer to perhaps just turn down your volume that you can hear whilst you speak, right in the right-hand corner on the bottom. Not muting yourself, but on the right hand on your own computer. To then perhaps whilst you speak and we hear from you, perhaps then you turn down that sound. I'm not sure whether that can assist. Then at least you won't hear that sound. You will only hear yourself speak. Do you think that can assist?
Okay, let me try that. Okay, so I'll try and get into details of what we have noticed about road infrastructure in the province. And I'm talking about roads in villages under the Amatole district, roads, road infrastructure in villages in the Tendane area under municipalities. I will just talk about those. There is also roads and in villages in the Port St. John's area under Nyandeni and Yellow. Hello. I don't know whether you could hear me or what, because there was a call from Ms. Mayekiso. Hello. Hello. Yes. Yes. No. I when I reduced volume.
for this afternoon is officially adjourned, and we will reconvene tomorrow at 8:30 sharp. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.